Pro Group Racing, show us your tips. We are here with our full Melbourne Cup preview, runner-by-runner analysis and all the ideas from the boys. Beaver, as always, is with me. How are you, mate?
Very good, thanks, Dagster. How are you, mate?
I'm good. Hot off the heels of a very good derby day for everyone.
Yes.
And joined by Barney boy. So we've called in a spring specialist for our big day.
Melbourne Cup specialist.
He was all over Vow and Declare last year and found a bit of, and just missed with Prince of Arran too. They were your two last year, and so we've got him back for the big show. So we thought for this one we'll run through runner by runner and give a bit of an opinion, and then a couple of ideas on how we're going to approach the big race. And of course you can find all our tips live and free on YouTube, Spotify and iTunes. You will find the full show at the link below as well. So get on board. We had a bit of luck this week, the whole way through, really.
Yeah, perfect.
But let's get into this. Perfect Track is the Spruik from Melbourne. Should play well. And let's have a look how we're going.
Pretty excited by that, Dagster, because it's sometimes a bit rare that we're getting a decent track for Cup Day.
Yeah,
usually the heavens open up, but it is Melbourne, so let's not count our chickens.
I know. So we will, as we get through it, I'll throw in a couple of wet trackers for everyone. But
you'll throw in everything in the
I
food.
do. Well, that's how I've played the quaddie, just for a bit of value.
As always.
Alrighty, so we kick off with Anthony Van Dyke, the top weight, Hugh Bowman, Aidan O'Brien. The highest, I spruiked him up on the Caulfield Cup show, but the highest rated stayer to come out here in a very, very long time. Draws gate 3 of his gate 24 run in the Caulfield Cup, arguably run of the race. Formed through the now retired Gatra as well as Stradivarius. How are you approaching this runner?
Look, I think the run of Anthony Van Dyke in the Caulfield Cup was pretty impressive. Had to make a long sweeping run. Look, my reservations here, drawn well, which is good, so should get a good run. My only reservations is never been over the 3,200, so it's going to have to run that. And carrying 58.5, so it is weighted up to a good horse's weight in a race like the Melbourne Cup.
So top weight hasn't won since Mackay Beaver back in 05.
With a similar weight, right?
Exactly.
So you're going to have to be good as Mackay Beaver to win this. And yeah, it's my one reservation at $8 whether I want to take that. What do you reckon, Barn?
Yeah, no, 100% with you there, mate. But I think this field's probably a little bit softer than if you're going back to the Mackay Beaver race back when she did win it from the top weight. I think he's going to be a major player at the end of it. He'll be there when the whips are cracking. Seemed to have plenty left at the end of the cup there, and was motoring home very well. So I think he'll be a major player in this race.
Yeah, I think that could be right. But $8.
Yep. It'll be in my top 4 for sure.
Yeah,
when we get to that, definitely. At the end of the day, I think it's one of the world's best horses, and I thought it was a tremendous Melbourne Cup trial out of the Caulfield Cup.
And that form does stack up.
It has, yes, that's right. Avilius, we know very well, has been around for a few years in Australia now. Actually was quite good, hidden run in Turnbull, but for me probably past its best slightly, and I'm happy to pass on. Needs a wet track, but if it does get one, there's a couple of wet trackers in the towel up, in my opinion. Beaver?
Yeah, nothing for me here, mate. $51. You can have that on your own. I just don't think it's up to this race.
Barney?
Yeah, exactly the same. I think it's just gone, it's past its best now, and we can leave that one out, I think. Vow
and Declare, last year's winner. Tremendous ride from Craig Williams to get up last year. I don't think it's been with us since, to be honest.
100%. 009 last 3 starts. Not for me.
Barney?
Yeah, form's been very soft since last year's Melbourne Cup. Need to jump out of the ground to even get close, I think.
Master of Reality was second across the line in last year's Cup, relegated on protest. Did finish within a length of Stradivarius in a slow race afterwards. Hasn't done a lot since, and I think it's missed its shot. Happy to go around.
Yeah, look, I've got a similar view to you. Recent form's been okay in Ireland. It comes to this race, you would like to think from the O'Brien stable, Joseph O'Brien it is, with a chance, but only an outside chance for me. Would have to do something unexpected here to probably be in the finish.
Yeah, I think its form's actually probably a little bit better than what it was at this time last year. I'll be looking at it maybe as an each way play, but yeah, I don't think it wins this race.
Sir Dragonet, the Cox Plate winner, G-Boss Sticks. He's very enamoured with the horse. Won very convincingly on a track with the sting out of it 2 weeks back. Did start favourite in the Epsom Derby ahead of Anthony Van Dyke. I thought Van Dyke had a bit of a tougher run and gave it a beating. Fresh legs, drier track. Any interest?
Yeah, I've got a bit of interest in Sir Dragonet. I think there was a lot to like about its Cox Plate run. And even though, as you said, Van Dyke beat it comfortably overseas, that doesn't mean they don't come here and run better.
Absolutely.
Under different conditions.
Yep. No, 100%.
And its first up run in the Cox Plate was really impressive. It sat midfield. It hit the line well. It looked to still have plenty in hand. If it ran a race like that in Caulfield Cup, we'd be talking it up, and there's no reason that the Cox Plate form doesn't stack up in a race like this, given there's a few runners in here. So I think Sir Dragonet is a absolute live chance. Bossy does know how to ride in these races, weighted well. Van Dyke has to give it 3 kilos. Again, probably my only reservations is if it runs the 3200, but if it does, you're probably going to get a sight when they hit the clock tower.
100% with Beaver on this one, to be honest. It's good, very good fresh form, first and second up. It was super impressive in the Cox Plate, the way that it came home at the back end of that race, and it seemed to have plenty left in the legs. It's got a few 100 metres to make up at the end of that race, but I can't rule it out of being there at the end of this race.
I agree. You're getting absolute A1 Glen Boss as well over the Melbourne Cup distance, so definitely in a mix.
$9.50, $10 mark?
You'll get the $10 a day.
Yeah.
Number 6, Twilight Payment for Joseph O'Brien, Joe McNeil. Has beaten Master Reality since, but given this is an 8-year-old gelding as well, I'm saying that's more of a drag on Master Reality than a spruik for Twilight in any way. Happy to... and since last year's Melbourne Cup, it's had 2 wins and 2 seconds, but happy to pen this as well.
Yeah, not for me, mate. Got its frequent flyer points, and that's about it, mate.
Yeah, it's always run in and around that distance, so it should be, should get the distance, but I don't know if it'll be quick enough at the end of the race.
The Caulfield Cup winner, very elegant, arguably Australia's best mare. Definitely even superior on a wet track if the storm does roll through. Which the form's right there with the Van Dyke, so if you like that, you got to like the other. Anything to how you're approaching this mare?
Oh, look, I think Very Elegant is a superstar. I think this preparation, it's been outstanding. Look, its first up win was just, you had to see it to believe it. Yeah. The next run was a bit flat, but that's not unusual when they're setting them.
Unlucky too.
Yeah, a bit unlucky with the pace and everything else. And then the last 2 runs have been outstanding. Look, in the Caulfield Cup, at one stage, Van Dyke looked like when it was winding up, I was going to go past it, but Very Elegant still had a sprint.
Yeah, my early crow stopped it.
Yeah, you had the early crow, and then
that's unlike
Very
me,
Elegant did ping.
Yeah.
And I think it was probably going just as good on the line as Anthony Van Dyke, to be honest. Again, this is another 800, but look, I couldn't rule Very Elegant out, actually. I think it's an absolute huge chance.
Barney,
yeah, distance a question, as Beaver alluded to. I'm not 100% sure it gets that distance, but if it's still got half of its normal kick left at the last couple of 100 metres, it should go close.
This comes up with everything. Is there an opinion that over the query distance, probably, if you've got a query over a horse over the distance, it probably suits Europeans more than Australians? Is that, is it a case by case?
I think so, but a lot will depend on the distance too, on how genuine
the tempo
race
is,
and the tempo is run. Like, we've seen horses in the past that don't look like they're going to be 3,200 metre horses, and they still run well. You know, you look at horses like Saintly, is a perfect example. Cox Plate, that won't get the 3,200, but they've got to sit there, it got a sweet run, and then it's able to let down and put down its finishing sprint.
I would say even was the last year before Avilius, same thing, and ran third in the race a couple of years. No, not Avilius, I'm thinking of Hartnell. Hartnell a couple of years back was in the same sort of boat. So it does.
But there was a couple.
I don't think the leap from 24 to 28 to 32 is as big as potentially, say, a mile to 24. In my opinion.
Yeah, and there's some horses like that have done that like that before, and even going back to Van Dyke and that. Sir Dragonet, if you look at horses that came here like Media Puzzle and even going back as far as that, they hadn't started over this distance before. Geelong Cup 2400 kills them and, happy days.
Yep.
Oh, it's always hard to line up the distance because there's not a lot of races run over that distance, to be honest, unless you're going overseas. But I think a wet tracker generally alludes to the fact that they can run a further distance than someone who's been running shorter distances over on dry tracks. So, yeah, I can't rule very elegant out at all.
For me, I think she's Australia's best hope. I know both of you probably disagree, and I think if it was a wet track, I would have her on top. Musaji, for Chris Lee's shadow, it's for myself. Do we need to add anything?
Yeah, not interested at all.
Stratum Albion.
Need to start now. That's about it.
It might be a chance in the Macca's run before it if it does. Yeah. Stratum Albion, 8-year-old gelding hurdler. Willie Mullins is a very clever man, but if he wins this, I'll be losing on the race.
Yep.
Any further to add?
No, it needs to start with Mustaji.
Finch. I think Finch is flying this
Dashing
prep.
Willoughby.
Yeah, Dashing Willoughby. Sorry.
Put that in with the last two.
Dashing Willoughby did run 18th in the Caulfield Cup, but stumbled at the start, which can't be any help.
18th. I'd run 18th in the Caulfield Cup.
Yeah. I have people telling me this is a good horse, that you forgive that and it should be better than 100 to 1. Led the Caulfield Cup up. I can't get excited off the run, despite probably the forgive there. Not for me, but either of you two want to chime in?
No, not for me.
Not for me, mate. I think, it's won over 3,200 a couple of starts back at Sandown, but again, that form is very hard to line up. And when you've got other horses like Sir Dragonet and Anthony Van Dyke in this race, then, looking elsewhere.
Yep. The 11th, Finch. I think it's flying this prep. I think it's going really well. It now gets James McDonald. Made a weird sort of mid-race move in the Caulfield Cup to just go and sit 3 wide, which I didn't quite understand. Got buffeted a couple of times in a straight. For me, I won't be talking anyone out of Finch if they want to back it. Price dependent. Anything to add, boys?
What do you got?
It looks to me it's played its cards over the last couple of races, mate. It looks a couple of 100 metres short to me. Last 2 runs it's been a couple of 100 metres short, and I expect it to be the same, mate, on Tuesday.
For me, it's pretty similar. Don't even know when the last time this horse won a race. So it seems to come up in everyone's discussions. For me, it's going to be $18, mate. It should be a bit more than that. But
I think
Chris Waller is
it is Chris Waller, which is the question mark.
And James McDonald, but Finch won't be winning this.
Prince of Arran was great in the last couple of years, Melbourne Cup. I think can run well here again, was the best closer in the Caulfield Cup. I think it can do a Red Cadeau and place again. I don't think it can win.
Look, I think Prince of Arran is a really good chance. If you want to look at the Caulfield Cup form, closing fourth is always a good lead up to a race like this. Has run well in a Melbourne Cup before, so that's also a good pointer. It's drawn the 1 gate. Maybe that's a disadvantage. I don't think so, as long as it doesn't get too far back and stuck on the fence. But, there will be a lot of runners here that will be stopping, and as long as it can get out, one thing's for sure, it's going to run the distance. So it's probably not going to be a horse that's going backwards at the 400. It's probably going to be a horse that at some stage it's going to be coming into the race, whether it's too far back and can make up that ground, who knows, and can let down well enough. But I certainly think that it would be a horse that you'd want to be throwing in your exotics, and I certainly wouldn't talk anyone out of it if they wanted to back it a win.
It's been my top pick for the last 2 years. Its form's a little bit softer this year than what it has been in previous years, but I'm going to pin my flag to this mast again, and I'll go again with it. So I wouldn't be surprised if it wins, and I won't be leaving out of the top 4, that's for sure.
Yeah, very good. Surprise Baby, interesting talking point. So this horse has apparently been put in this earth to win this race on Tuesday, according to connections and everything else. Nice. 2 runs in a year leaves me completely cold. I don't want to be involved, but it is a European prep. It was kept down in the weights. Craig Williams on, camp confident. I wanted to see more in the Turnbull one to be interested. It actually ran on pretty well, but not as explosively. As I talked about with Young Werther, I'd like to see a proper prep for these sort of horses, but it would have been work to the hilt. I'm sure it'd be ready to go. leave me out.
We've been having this debate for a while, haven't we, Dyke? Surprise Baby is an absolute huge chance.
Yep.
Its preparation last time in was not overly that dissimilar to Melbourne Cup.
Yeah.
Again, we know it'll run the distance. First up was very impressive. Probably should have won that race. Last start ninth. Don't worry too much about the 9 because it did get stopped in its tracks, didn't get a run, and then when it got out, it looked like a horse that wanted further. And still ran on okay. I think when it was about to make its run, I think it would have finished a lot closer than 9th.
And did SP $5 in that race.
And did SP $5. So last run, they obviously think that was enough. And I'm willing to take my chances with Pruska and say that he knows what he's doing, particularly with a stayer like this. So I think, Surprise Baby, probably being a little bit fresher means that it can let down, have that sprint at the end, and it's not too dour. Look, the way that they train to win Melbourne Cups these days is different to what it has been in the past with kilometres under the belt. So for me, Surprise Baby, absolute chance, $10, probably be my main play.
Yeah, you're right. The key now seems to be, and it's the Aidan O'Brien theory that, there's one either is you now want freshness in the legs, which you have to find that balance of a sprint and 2 miles. So,
and I certainly think it was a bit wet last year too, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was. I'll tell you right now.
And I don't think that's overly suits it.
Soft 5, yeah, it was.
As long as it doesn't get too far back.
We're still fairly strong to the line at the end of last year without.
There's a complete school of thought. There's a complete school of thought that it was the best run of the race, and
it was pretty close.
People telling me it should have won the race. So yeah.
And
it'll be like Penrith Panthers the next year. Should have won last year and might not this year. Barney, how are you approaching Surprise Baby?
To be in every one of my multiples that I'm going to put in. It should be in and around the finish. I can't see it falling too far back. It was super strong at the end of last year's race, and with fresh legs could be even stronger than what it was this time last year.
The 14 King of Lear grants for Danny O'Brien, Damien Lane. I'm saying too heavily tied to the week in, week out Melbourne form, and though slightly better than most of the midweek. Not midweek, I should say regular Saturday Melbourne form, too tied to it for me to be entertained. Anything to add for you boys?
Not for me. Hasn't produced the form that it produced last preparation, and for me, I'm happy to raise the bat.
Barney?
Yeah, the only thing I might have a couple of dollars each way, just because the time it ran in the Adelaide Cup this time last year was very similar to the winner of the Melbourne Cup at this time last year. So it can run the time if it's at its best, but whether it is or not.
When's the last time an Adelaide Cup horses won the Cup?
I would suggest somewhere in the 90s.
Probably never, but
no, I think it has. I think it has happened, but I couldn't tell you who it is. Let's have a look here. 3,200. Yeah. All right. Another interesting talking point. The other one will be Russian Camelot. Currently around the $13 mark. Drawn gate 16. We haven't really touched on the barrier draw too much, but Russian Camelot drawn 16. Ollie sticks. Has been through all the A grade, started very short in a lot of them, started favourite in fact in all its races this prep. Now at the 3,200, has had I guess the classic prep, wait for age build up into this. Is it good enough, Beaver?
It's certainly good enough. I just can't. Look, I've been disappointed the last 2 runs with Russian Camelot. The first 2 runs this prep have been good over sort of those more shorter middle distance runs. The second behind Arcadia Queen, people go, slow run race, but Arcadia Queen come from behind it. So it didn't sprint like a horse that I would have thought it would have in a race like that at $1.50. Forgave it for the Cox Plate and said, okay, I'm willing to rule a line through it. I forgave it for the Cox Plate. Look, it had every chance. Had the best run in the race.
I do want to say, Ollie's ride in the Cox Plate was absolutely outstanding. Just as Ollie's ride actually in Youngworth yesterday was absolutely outstanding. Ollie gave that every possible chance and was beaten by 2 better horses.
Yep. So and for me, I just didn't think, and people might say, looked dour and things like that, but a horse that's going to win the Melbourne Cup still needs to have a sprint at the end of the race. They've got to hit that 300, 200 and be hitting the line in Flemington. Otherwise, a good stay is just going to beat you. And I just don't know that it's a 3,200 metre stayer with a sprint at the end. I think it might be more of a dynamic 1,600.
Yeah,
2,000.
Well, trying it brilliant. Barney, how are you approaching?
Yeah, 100%.
Camelot?
Exactly the same with Beaver, to be honest. Great record, good horse. The distance is my problem. I can't see it running 3,200. So.
I want to say this actually. I want to wrap Danny O'Brien. I think Ollie's ridden it perfectly every start. I think O'Brien's trained to the minute. I just don't think it's as good as people think it is. Well, I think it's run to its absolute best every start, and it's obviously a good horse. I wish I owned it. I don't think it's going to win the Melbourne Cup on Tuesday.
Well, we're going, we're talking about Russian Camelot because of a run it ran last preparation where it was absolute dynamite, and I'm just going to call
in the SA Derby, which in the SA Derby,
count. Right?
So Darla Sun and Warning. Who would you back over them in this race?
Yeah, that's right. Well, Warning's in this race, and you can write your own ticket.
Yeah.
And it was a great run, but it was last prep. And we just had a go at an Adelaide Cup winner there.
It's Adelaide Derby, which I would suggest lower. Which, like I said, second place was Darla Sun, who's barely a 400 metre horse.
Yeah, and it can beat up rubbish horses.
Yeah.
And it's not without some ability, Darla Sun, but there, it's not wouldn't be a price in this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've just got a bit of a question mark over that. First two runs in were pretty good, but last two, just when it was in class, wasn't good enough for me.
I think we've covered that pretty well. Steel Prince, the Geelong Cup winner. Willie Pike for Anthony Freedman. Beat home Asheron in the Geelong Cup. Asheron will beat it home on Tuesday. That's all I can add to that.
I think you're probably right in regards to that. It was okay in the Geelong Cup.
It was good, but I don't want to touch anything from that race. So
me either, and $34, I think, if you like it, have a few bucks, but yeah, not for me.
100%, exactly the same as you two. It seems tough enough, but I don't know if it. Yeah, I don't think it gets close in this race.
Yeah. The chosen one, Steakhouse and Murray Baker, was tremendous in the Caulfield Cup. Had a couple of tick-over runs before the Cup in between its first up win. I think what you see is what you get. It ran third to Very Elegant and Anthony Van Dyke, and the form's okay, and that's probably the distance that those two will beat it by on Tuesday.
Yep, 100% not for me. Honest horse, and that's about it.
Asheron is on the quick backup again. It won the Hotham yesterday to get a ticket in here. Declan Bakes on board from the outside gate. Slowly run race yesterday, which means it will have something in the tank. Do I want to back a European horse 3 runs in 10 days to win a Melbourne Cup? No. Think good on having a ticket, but that'll do me. Anything to add?
Nah, same. Again, I thought it was running the Geelong Cup wasn't bad, but I expect they were hoping to win that race, and they didn't, and they had to start it because they brought it here for the Melbourne Cup.
In the race. Yeah, exactly. The trainer said as much in the pre-race interview. After that one, ran a second in the Kergulay over 3,000 metres in a decent time, but on that short backup, I can't see that. I don't see it being able to back up 4 days later.
With Gate 24.
With Gate 24 and Declan Bate, which all due respect to the kid, but it'll be the day. If he wins tomorrow, it's the ride of his life.
Yep.
Warning, Luke Curry, Anthony Freeman, the 4-year-old tick, which I've talked about, heading into this. Lightly raced, going well, but coming through Russian Camelot form, 50 to 1's the right price.
Yeah, it's always one of those horses that looks like it's going to produce something and just, runs midfield and finishes off okay, and probably do the same again here.
I'll be surprised if it finishes closer to the front than it does at the back.
Etta James, 200 to 1, did win the Sydney Cup on a bog last time. I'm saying if it's any chance it needs a bog, and if it's a bog, very early, it'll kick its head in. Anything else to add there, Barney? You want to make a case, I believe, actually.
Oh, just same with the Adelaide Cup winner that I mentioned before. Its time that it ran in the Sandown Cup was very similar to the Melbourne Cup time that was run last year. I'll have $1 each way just because of the price that it's at. I don't expect it to win, but if it can run a place at 15s or 20s, then I'll take that.
Tiger Moth, this is an interesting one. First up, fits the profile of Rekindling, cross-counter, Northern Hemisphere 3-year-old into this. Again, this is a horse like Surprise Baby. It's been said probably this is its goal in life to win this race. O'Brien, McAvoy, last year, Gate 23's won the last 2 Melbourne Cups.
Is that right?
Yeah. Lightly raced. This is a complete conundrum. I think it's right price. I will be backing it. interesting discussion when you're putting Tiger Moth, who's had the 2 runs, against Surprise Baby. Are you backing the might of Aidan O'Brien to do the same thing as Paulie Prushko, or are you backing Little Battler? So, very interesting horse. When we get our tips, it'll be hype in mind. But Barney, how are you approaching this horse?
Oh, once again, it's never gone close to the distance. I think 25 is the furthest that it's run over, which you have to question, obviously, in a Melbourne Cup. But it's a very good international horse with a great record, and the international horses seem to turn up in the Melbourne Cup no matter what. So it'll definitely be in my numbers.
Only start against the older horses. It did win by 4. Ease down was the other comment I had to make there. Beaver.
Yeah, super interested in this horse. Look, it's only had 4 race starts ever.
Yeah.
And Aidan O'Brien knows what it takes to win a Melbourne Cup. And interestingly, this is one of his picks to bring here. So that for me is an absolute really good indication that he thinks this horse is up to a race like this. It's weighted to perfection. It looks to be a horse in the mould of Rekindled. The fact that it hasn't started over the distance doesn't actually really bother me in that sense, because I think it looks like it's a horse that's will definitely run the distance. As you said, last start, one before ease down, kicked their brains in overseas. Look, it's got everything in its favour. It's even starting from the barrier of the last 2 Melbourne Cup winners. Kieran McAvoy, we know how good Kieran is in a race like this, 52 and a half.
I've seen his veins, Kieran. What, 2 Everests, 2 Melbourne Cup, 2 Melbourne Cups.
Yeah. Aidan O'Brien, this horse will be fit and ready to go. It'll certainly be one of my top selections, and I'll be having a look at this on the day as well.
Ocean X found a bit of form last start, won its way in through the winter. Do we need to talk about it?
Nope.
No interest.
Miami Bound, like the race 4-year-old down in the weights. The mare, I thought it was the winner of the day 2 weeks back at Moonee Valley. I thought it was tremendous. And I like the booking of Daniel Moore, and I will have a small bet. You're probably getting 60s on Betfair during the day, and I'll be having something there. But beyond that, I don't have much more to add. You boys?
Exactly with you, mate. As you said, down in the weights, each way bet a certainty on the day.
No thanks.
Okay.
No.
And Persan, one of yours, Beaver, again, the 4-year-old rep, less lightly raced, probably the standard bearer for Australian consistency in the staying ranks.
Yep.
Mickey D, no problem with his booking. Again, similar to Miami, you get a big price, worth a little ticket, and might be the vow and declare of this year. Ultimately, would I back it tomorrow ahead of some of the big guns? Maybe not. Well, actually, like I said, small bet, but won't be a big result for me. You boys, any to add?
Yeah, probably similar to you, Dougie. Look, I probably would have had a bigger rap on Persan if it drawn a better barrier. My real concern with 20 is I think it's a horse that needs a cosy run. It needs to be nursed. I would have liked to see it drawn probably one of the inside 6
He's
gates.
very much. He can't go back to last and win a Melbourne Cup.
No.
He can stalk and sit behind lead and be in the finish, but yeah.
So you're going to have to take the risk that D fills him up, comes across.
Early.
He's going to have to use a little bit early to probably try and get in the top 6, sit in there, and then look. We know Persan's got a big heart, and we know it. At some stage, if it can get a little bit of a cosy run, it will probably, produce something at somewhere in the straight to look like it's going to be in the race, and whether it can run 3,200, a bit similar to some of those other horses. Yeah, for me, I think, it's worth a play, but it needs a bit, just needs that luck in running. It's one of those horses in this race that needs a lot of luck in running.
Yeah, can't disagree at all. Young down in the weights, very good record, but I think it's tested in this grade. And distance is a query, but it's worth an each way ticket.
All right, let's wrap up. Beaver, you can kick off. How are you going to play the race, and maybe give us an exotic for the punters that they can have their $10 on Cup Day?
Yeah, for me, my selection on top is Surprise Baby. I am going to go Surprise Baby. I backed it last year. There's no reason if I backed it last year that I want to back it this year. So certainly Surprise Baby on top for me. I will be playing on Tiger Moth. I think Tiger Moth is a huge chance, number 21. So they'll be my 2 main plays. And then if I'm looking at some other chances, obviously Very Elegant. I do think it's a major player, and I I think Anthony Van Dyke is certainly a good chance, and if I was having something on something that's a bit left of field outside of that, probably go for something like Passan and Steel Prince as my sort of wider options if I was throwing something into the first four.
Fantastic. Barn, how are you approaching the race that stops the nation?
Yeah, as I said, I pinned my flag to Prince of Iran for the last 2 years, and I'll be doing it again. That'll be my top pick in this race. I got Anthony Van Dyke in as my second pick. They'll be my two major bets on the day. Going back to Tiger Moth as my third pick, and Sir Dragonet in and around at the end of the race. I'm going to probably have an each way bet on King of Leah Grants. And Ashman on the backup, who knows, might run out of the ground, but that'd be my two each way plays.
For me, on top Anthony Van Dyke, been with it all the way through from Tiger Moth, the lightly raced one that fits the profile like that has set the standard the last 4 years. Very elegant, best of the Australians, and my best roughie at around the 60s mark will be Miami Bound, and that sums up our thoughts on the Melbourne Cup. So stay tuned, check out our YouTube page, Pro Group Racing, and we'll have the full recap of the rest of the card as well as the Randwick meeting coming up shortly.